Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. What if guys in Hollywood got Arnold Schwarzenegger to play the part of Jesus in a summer blockbuster movie? Just before the crucifixion, Arnold looks Pontius Pilate in the eye. And with a deadly stare, he says, "I'll be back." And when he comes back, he comes with a bazooka. You see, this is what we call guy-think. There is a difference between a man and a guy. The humor writer Dave Barry has a quiz to help us tell the difference. Here's part of the quiz. Question 1. What's the most reasonable explanation for Moses leading the children of Israel through the wilderness for 40 years? A. He and the people were being tested by God. B. He wanted them to appreciate the promised land when they got there. C. He refused to ask directions. Question 2. What is the greatest achievement of the human race? A. Democracy. B. Religion. C. The TV remote. And question 3. One weekday morning, your wife is sick. She asks you to get your 3 children ready for school. What is your first question to her? A. Do they need to eat or anything? B. They're in school already? C. There are 3 of them? Now, if you gave the answer C to all these questions, then you know the difference between a man and a guy. To clarify further, Dave Barry says this: Captain Ahab was a man. Captain Kangaroo was a guy. Christopher Columbus was a man. Whoever hit that first golf ball on the moon was a guy. A Doberman Pinscher is a man. My black Labrador Retriever is a guy. Now, here's my point. I think St. Mark was a man while Peter and the other disciples were guys. Definitely guys. In Mark's gospel, the male disciples of Jesus just don't get it. As the story goes on, they become more and more dense and insensitive. But watch the women around Jesus. They catch on quickly. Take today's episode from Mark's Gospel. Jesus quietly heals Peter's mother-in-law. Now, these days, we might kind of wince at what comes next. An older woman is healed so that she can wait on some younger men. Sounds like a way of life we don't accept anymore. The menfolk sitting around being served, the women working all the time. But I think there's another way to look at this story. As I watch older people around me, I can see something else. Work can be a joy. Activity is a way to be connected to the world around us. Being useful feels really good. What if this woman really loved the way she ran her household? What if being ill made her miss the smells of her cooking and the happy sounds of hungry people eating a good meal and the pleasure of table conversation? When we can't be useful anymore due to illness or infirmity, that really hurts. This woman was healed, and she was returned to a place where she could offer people nourishment. She felt rich and generous again. Now, let's compare her with her son-in-law. Very early the next day, Jesus gets up and goes off to somewhere for alone time. Peter can't stand this, goes looking for him. When he finds him, Peter interrupts Jesus at morning prayer. Right too, of course. And Peter says, "Come on, everybody's looking for you." Now notice that Peter has done nothing to help all these hurting people, but he's very interested in getting Jesus back to work. Maybe it's so he can have some reflected glory and prestige as the right-hand man of the big guy. Now and later in Mark's gospel, the guys miss the point again and again. They think it's all about power and glory. Jesus says it's all about self-denial and service. The guys miss the point again and again. The women get it. They know that the Jesus way is about self-denial and service. Later on, Mark will tell us about a poor widow who even in her poverty still knew how to give money away generously. Later on, Mark will tell us about a woman who anointed Jesus for burial ahead of time when the guys were still in denial about the whole thing. Later on, Mark will tell about the women at the cross who had the guts to stay with Jesus on the path even when the guys ran away in terror. And it's not like it was any safer for those women. Unprotected women in places occupied by brutal foreign soldiers have never been safe. Not back then, not in our world today. They had guts. And right here, as the story begins, Peter's mother-in-law gets it. She has been loved, so she loves others. She has been served, so she becomes a servant. She has been blessed, so she becomes a blessing. The women in Mark's gospel get it. They know it's not all about power and glory. They know it's about self-denial and service. And in Mark's gospel, Peter's mother-in-law is the first of these strong, wise women. She had been loved, so she loved others. She had been served, she became a servant. She had been blessed, she became a blessing. Now let me give you my theory about whoever wrote Mark's gospel. We really don't know for sure if it was a he or a she, although it was probably a he given ancient culture's parameters. But we don't really know. His name was Mark. That name got affixed 100 years later, but I got to tell you, I really, really like that name a lot. But here's my theory. I think he started out as a guy. And then the Jesus stories turned him into what Jews today call a mensch. A mensch is a decent, mature, responsible, and kind person. A mensch is sort of the opposite of a guy. And as I think St. Mark went from guy to mensch. And as far as I can tell, it was all because of the Jesus stories. Since he wrote his gospel, which was the first gospel, decades after the lifetime of Jesus. It was the stories. So there's hope for guys like me. Dave Barry ends his book on guys with this question: future guys of tomorrow, is there hope for humanity? His smart guy answer is, no, there's not. But instead of that, I'm going with hope. The Jesus stories tell me that I can change. The Jesus stories tell me that you can change, guys and gals. The Jesus stories tell me that it's not all about power and glory. The Jesus stories tell me it's all about self-denial and service. Amen.